Good afternoon, everybody, and welcome back to another weather forecast here by Adrian. And it is officially June 1st, 2022. And you know what that means? That means the 2022 official national hurricane season has officially begun. And let's just say that we are already seeing, with the 5 day tropical weather outlook, we are already seeing the resemblance, I guess, of the hurricane season. I can't believe it's already here. It felt like we just talked about Laura and Sam and Grace and Henry or whatever. All those storms from last year feel like that just happened, and we're already back in June here, which means we're also 6 months away from 2023, which is pretty crazy. But whatever. Let's go ahead and get into the forecast for Invest 90. I believe it's 91L here. And this has a 70% chance here. We have an area of low pressure. Which this is actually, I believe, was it Amanda? I forgot what the storm in the Eastern Pacific was called. I think it was like Amanda, or I think it was Agatha, something like that. I kind of forgot because I haven't really paid attention towards the Eastern Pacific. But I'm pretty sure it's Agatha. Yeah, I'm pretty sure it was Agatha. So This is actually this basically post-tropical low pressure from Agatha. But just like we saw in 2020 with Cristobal, it does have a chance to reform in the Atlantic and actually possibly pose a threat towards the United States here. So this does have a 70% chance of development within the next 48 hours and does have a 80% within the next 5 days. And I actually do think this could very well become a tropical depression. I'm still not exactly confident necessarily just yet in a tropical storm. I do believe this does have the chance to become a tropical storm. I think it's actually fairly possible. However, there's it's a very tight window with the overall conditions in the environment, and I'll get to that a little bit more in the video. But there's that low pressure. It's basically just off the Yucatan Peninsula. It's practically just between Yucatan and between the Cuba general region. That's actually, these waters are pretty warm here, so it's a pretty broad area of low pressure. And the environment is somewhat conducive. However, again, it would have to be conducive for gradual development, which would obviously take a process for a couple of days or a few days here. So we will see the interest as it does go to the east northeast towards Cuba and Florida. So this actually have a long area of waters, very warm waters that it has to go through. So that's why I think there is a possibility of again, there's more than just water when it comes to the tropics. There's a lot of stuff like shear, moisture, just looking at the subtropical jet, and taking all those things into consideration, as well as the upper levels, lower levels, vorticity, all that good stuff here. So here's actually where this system is, and you can kind of tell what the low pressure is. You can kind of spot a little bit area of some rotation there. And I think I should probably, I'm not sure if I'll use yellow. So you can kind of spot that your area of low pressure is around right here. So all your main convection is actually towards the east of your actual low pressure. So you can kind of see this is actually, we are seeing some decent rotation already. You can kind of see the overall general rotation going that way. However, we don't have a fully closed low pressure, nor do we have fully kind of clockwise circulation. So we can't really say this is already a tropical system. However, again, this does have the possibility to become a depression at least. I do think this will form into a depression. But will we get our first storm, which is, I believe it's Alex? Will we get Alex? I'm not entirely sure, but this storm isn't looking too shabby right now. You can kind of see a lot of convective storms here, and we are seeing a little bit of a little bit more convection over there, just to the west, or just to the east of that low pressure. Again, pretty clear. You can see very minimal rotation kind of going on the western side, which is why it's still obviously not formed just yet. However, as it does go more into the waters, I think it could definitely become something. Let's now look at the overall. Let's see the overall brightness temperature of these convective bursts, these convective storms. You can see they definitely have gone in a decrease here. I guess you could say this is definitely going through kind of a traditional kind of D-min phase, where you kind of see that rapid decrease in your convection and within your intensity of convection. But you can kind of tell overall we are seeing a little bit of a burst right here. Like I mentioned, we saw on the satellite right here, a little bit of burst. I mean, we do have some pretty cold tops here, and these pretty cold temperatures here when it comes to these clouds and these storms. So we are definitely getting that kind of resemblance of a more than just tropical shower. We are seeing some organization within these clouds, but obviously they are warming up a little bit here. So we will have to see how this plays out, especially as we go into the overnight hours. See if we see anything. If we have an increased wave of convective cover and convective intensity. Let's go ahead and look at the overall model's probability of a tropical depression here. So this is the European probability of a tropical depression. So we don't have any other models available here, at least. This is just for the European. So this is the European probability of a tropical depression. We actually do have a 90 to 100% chance highlighted just to the north of where this location is. So this location, the low pressure is kind of down here. So as it kind of moves to the northeast, so there is a pretty good chance, at least in the European, for development here of a tropical depression, a 90 to 100% chance just off Cancun. And you can kind of see this, even if it doesn't form to a depression there, which I think it is likely. Look at all these waters it has. I know this, not just water, we do have a ridge to worry about here, and we do actually have some dry air to worry about in the future in the Gulf. So that's why I'm still not exactly 100% sure when it comes towards tropical storm status, but there you see we still have a pretty good chance, a 80 to 90% chance all the way towards Florida and to beyond Florida. So even if it doesn't form before Florida, which I think it will, we do have a possibility in the Gulf Stream here. The Gulf Stream in early June can do magic things like we saw. I think, no, Arthur was May, but we saw Bertha. I think Bertha was still May. But you can kind of see, like, between May and early June, the early season, we start to see a lot of magic going on here within the Gulf Stream here, and you get some subtropical storms, or you get some actual tropical storms. So who knows? Maybe we could see something pull off in the Gulf Stream eventually after Florida. So this could be a storm that we could talk about for a few days, and then gets kind of just destroyed by shear, which is a possibility, or it could last a few more days than that. Tropical storm probability, it's going to be rather low here, not much confidence. However, as we go within after Florida, there's a higher increasing probability of a 70 to 80% chance here, and then at 80 to 90%. So there's some confidence here, possibly after Florida. Again, then all has to kind of depend on whether the southeast ridge is really strong on its location and overall the intensity of that high pressure. But here are the overall ATCF guidance tracks. Here you can kind of see it's going to kind of go kind of basically due north, maybe practically almost directly northeast here, maybe even directly north towards Cancun, which is where it could very well still be over waters, but not really. It's going to be a pretty good distance from that shear, and it's going to be in a pretty good bubble. Its best kind of environment will actually be between the next day or so, where it's going to have the least amount of shear and actually one of the warmest waters in this whole track, which is obviously the Western Caribbean is very, very warm, and arguably one of the warmest parts of the Atlantic Ocean at this time of year here. So definitely a good chance. I do not think this will go towards, I don't think it will actually make landfall in the northern Gulf. I think with that ridge, it's going to kind of get pushed. So I think there's a possibility that we could see a landfall, whether it's depression, storm, whatever it is, in southern Florida, maybe even a little bit closer to Tampa Bay. I think that's a possibility here. It all just depends on the intensity and location of that high pressure, and as well with the location of the subtropical jet, where it is and how far south it is, etc. Here's the overall 91L intensity guidance, and for once we actually don't have really models jumping to tropical storm like we usually see in the first advisories a lot, but we do have the, I can't tell, is it a DSHP model gets this towards a borderline tropical storm twice within the next 36 and within the next 60 hours. So that's pretty interesting. I do think, like I said, even if it doesn't become a storm, I think it will form to depression. So I think we will get a formation out of this, whether it's a storm or not. Here's the overall SSTs here as of yesterday. So it really isn't that much different today. So you can see the Western Caribbean is not boiling, but it is boiling compared to the rest of the Atlantic Ocean. We're seeing spots of around 28.5, maybe even 29 degrees Celsius, which is still pretty warm there. Like, what was that? Like 78, 79. Actually, no, it's probably warmer. It's probably like low 80s in Fahrenheit, probably. I could be wrong, though. But again, this low pressure, look where it's sitting right now. It's sitting basically just outside the Yucatan Peninsula, and it's still pretty warm water. What is that? 28.5. Yeah, it's 28 to 28.5 degrees Celsius, and it's going to be moving practically to due north between Cuba and Mexico, still over those warm waters at around 28 degrees Celsius. And then it's going to be getting pretty close towards southwest Florida, where we are going to get some pretty warm waters. And again, it won't get there for the next few days, so these waters can still warm up by then. We are going to be seeing some accumulating ocean heat content, but they really won't change between now and then, so that really won't be a big difference. However, again, some pretty warm waters, and even if it doesn't form to a storm for Florida, although the waters are cooler here, all you need is around 24 degrees Celsius to really get a storm. Really, I think the bare minimum is 26, but you can get a subtropical storm at 24 degrees Celsius. We saw that last year, actually. I forgot what storm it was. I forgot what the first storm was last year. But yeah, I'm pretty sure the first storm last year was a subtropical storm, and it formed way up there, I think, and it was like 23 degrees Celsius waters. Like, it didn't even form down here; it formed way up there in the the northwest Atlantic. I forgot where though. It was like, I know it was close to the Gulf Stream, but not exactly on the Gulf Stream. If those who know the name from last year, please remind me, because I know last year's first storm was like 23 degrees Celsius. But yeah, you could get a subtropical storm here in the Gulf Stream. Again, the Gulf Stream does magic things, and although it's not going to be riding it like Arthur or Bertha or those other storms from 2020 and those other early storms we see, it will be going through the Gulf Stream and eventually in open water, which will still be pretty warm at 20, maybe 26, 27, just on that, kind of that, I guess you say that bare minimum for storms. But the GFS is actually jumping out of this storm pretty aggressively compared to the other models. You see, it's already having it at 1,002 millibars with the next future 6 hours, and as it goes to the north, it goes pretty north. It goes to the north pretty fairly slowly, which is why I do think this could become a depression. Pretty fairly soon. Like, I think this could very well become a depression with the next maybe 24-ish hours. With the next day, I think we could get a depression here. It has it already in the triple digits when it comes to pressure before it even surpasses Cancun, and 999 millibars when it gets close to Havana and Cuba. Then it weakens a little bit with some land interaction, but it stays pretty strong there at 1,000 millibars, and then strengthens to a 996 millibars right on those very warm waters next to the Key West area and Dry Tortugas, and as well getting pretty close to southwest Florida, including Naples. So like I said, as long as this low pressure stays pretty fairly south compared to the ridge, and it stays pretty far away from that dry air, and it does have a pretty good moisture bubble, this could very well become a very weak tropical storm. Before Florida, I'm thinking maybe 40 miles an hour, max 45 miles an hour before it gets to Florida. I don't have much confidence in the storm when it comes to tropical storm status, but I think there is a possibility it could very well get named, and I wouldn't doubt it. Like, if this were to get named before Florida, I wouldn't be shocked. I'd actually kind of be fairly confident in that. I'm not confident, but I'll be fairly neutral when it comes to feelings if it were to get named, because like I said, I wouldn't be shocked, but I'm also not banking on it, if that makes sense. But then, like I said, after Florida, it could become something in the Gulf Stream here, 997 millibars right after 999. So I think this could very well become something either way, pre or post Florida. And again, this is a pretty long track between Yucatan and Florida. It's a good time. It's going to be over waters, and as long as it doesn't really make a fairly long and interactive interaction with Cuba, I think this could very well become a storm. Like I said, I actually do have, I am banking on this to become our tropical depression one for the year. I do have fairly good confidence. And like I said, this is going to be one of the best conditions it's going to be in for the majority of its span here. Like, pretty good conditions off Yucatan. We do have a it's kind of right on a bubble here, so you can kind of see there's your subtropical jet stream here. You can kind of see like a slight ridge going on here. There's your high pressure just off to the southeast, and there's kind of your overall ridge. You can kind of see that kind of rising in the shear. So that's where you're going to be seeing kind of your ridge right there. You're going to be seeing kind of a trough down here in the western Gulf of Mexico. It's going to kind of allow for that lower pressure to kind of build up here in the system. So you can kind of see a little bubble there, a fairly minimal amount of shear. That's exactly why this storm had a chance to begin with. So that's what we're going to be seeing, this low pressure to be in that perfect spot, right in a pretty decent bubble with less than maybe 15 knots of shear, maybe even more, maybe even less. You can kind of see the reason why you're actually starting to struggle with some of that convection going on the west side is because we have around 20 to almost 30 knots right on that low pressure on the west side. So that's why we're starting to see some struggling of that. But as we continue to go on, it's going to continue to have a pretty good bubble, especially to the south. So we probably will be seeing a pretty rather lopsided system or lopsided wind field. So our tropical depression winds may be fairly to the south compared to very nothing to the north, because you can kind of see there's that ridge right there. It's going to be the further south that ridge is, the further south this low pressure will be driven, or it'll just get completely eaten alive. But the further north that ridge is, kind of the more space this low pressure has to kind of maneuver around. But there you see, it stays in a pretty good bubble. I mean, if you kind of zoom in good enough, you can see that low pressure really isn't necessarily in that shear bubble there, but it's in a pretty good bubble with very little shear. So that is something pretty good to see. And it's gonna get pretty tight when you get to the Gulf of Mexico, like I said. So I'm banking on the best conditions to be kind of pre-Gulf of Mexico, kind of staying in the Western Caribbean, because it's gonna get pretty close. You can kind of see that main jet stream kind of moves fairly southern, kind of merges with the subtropical jet stream, kind of pushes it pretty far south. So I think it's going to kind of really could bring in not only interference when it comes to shear, but dry air with the system. But again, it does have opportunities, once again, a bigger bubble with less shear. So either way, I think this could become a storm. It just depends kind of where, pre or post Florida. And I think this does have a fairly good shot even after Florida, once it kind of passes that Gulf Stream here. But yeah, let's go ahead and now look at the overall. I want to look at the lower levels here when it comes to moisture. So you can kind of see pretty good amount of moisture, pretty good amount of overall total precipitation, or total precipitated water. So we are going to be seeing some pretty good feasting going on here with this low pressure, especially as you see it again in the Caribbean. And then we do possibly have some interference here of dry air in the lower levels, but very slight. As long as we have a pretty good moisture bubble, it could sneak in on specifically the southwest side. Because like I said, the west side is going to be kind of the main area to watch out. The east side will be pretty organized, and we're already seeing that right now. And that structure really won't change too much. But again, always got to keep a close eye on that. Let's now look at the overall kind of 850 millibar of vorticity. Again, pretty good structure here. It's going to be a fairly small wind field. And then it kind of disorganizes a little bit as it kind of gets towards interaction between either Mexico or Cuba. And then it kind of consolidates here. So as long as it consolidates and it has a pretty good bubble, it could maybe sneak in 40 miles an hour to become a tropical storm for Florida. And then if not, it does have an opportunity here after Florida. So definitely got to keep that in mind. Let's then look at the European. I kind of like the tropical tidbits as they now have become your MSLP on the European now. So I don't have to go all the way to Weather Bell or whatever. So here's the European 3 hour. So it has this fairly weaker compared to the GFS right now. 1,007 millibars, stays pretty far south actually. Kind of just this low pressure kind of gets passed around, and that's probably why the European's a little bit weaker, because it kind of just has it all over the place here. It's not defined. And that's why it has it like 1,005 millibars in the Gulf of Mexico. The European's definitely having this all over the place, but it does have it to 1,001 just before Florida, which, I mean, that could be a borderline tropical depression, tropical storm, depending on the overall intensity of the winds. And then it actually gets to 997 just off Florida, and actually 996 just off Florida here. So that is, like I said, there could be something magic within the Gulf Stream here. We always got to believe in the Gulf Stream magic, especially in very, very early June. I mean, literally after it was May, so this is the perfect time for Gulf Stream magic. And then the Icon's actually surprisingly not having this be completely weak. It actually has it to 1,003 millibars. the Gulf of Mexico. And then it actually has a re-strengthening here. Like I said, there is a possibility this could become a far out the sea storm here, even if it doesn't form before Florida. So we can't just bank on Florida. And here's actually the new CMC, which just came out here. I actually have not seen it yet. Has it at 1,005 millibars for Florida, and then it has it kind of strengthened to 1,002 after Florida. So like I said, Gulf Stream magic here. We gotta see this Gulf Stream magic. But I hope you guys enjoyed the video, and I'll see you guys later.